Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. We will be starting the presentation in about 5 minutes. We're going to give people a few minutes to log on. Okay, Loie, I think we can get started.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for making time this evening to talk about solar with EnergySage and Green Energy Consumer Solutions. This is it's aimed at people who are already registered on the EnergySage website. If by chance you haven't already, don't leave. We'll cover topics that'll be of interest to you, no doubt. So, Matt, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Loie. So my name is Matt Schuler. I am a member of the energy advisor team at EnergySage. Essentially, my team's role is really to be the consumer-facing side of our marketplace. We are here to be just an objective resource for anyone looking to go solar who wants some more insight into how to make their choice. We talk to people really at every phase of their solar decision, from having just created an account with us all the way to making their final decision. So once we walk through the slides later, we're going to go through a bit more specific details really about how to best utilize our platform. And again, either myself or someone else who is a manager of your account is always there should you need any extra help or advice while moving forward.
Thanks. And I'm Loie Hayes. I'm the membership coordinator at Green Energy Consumers Alliance. I wear a lot of hats, and one of them is our solar advisor. Mostly I tell people, go to EnergySage, they're great. But I'm happy to chat with people about solar and lots of energy efficiency and other questions as well. So we're going to do a little Green Energy Consumers overview tonight, and then switch to the EnergySage slides. They'll talk about how to look at the quotes and how to determine what options are best to you, and what your energy advisor is there to help you with. And then we'll have question and answer at the end. For the question and answer, we're asking people to write their questions in the question function. Should be over on the upper right corner of your screen in that menu of options. Should be a question thing there. And Kate will help us with that. And if you have any technical problems, put a question in the question box for Kate, who may be listed as organizer, if you don't see her name, and she'll be able to help you with that. This is being recorded, and we will be sharing the slides afterwards with everyone who's registered. So about Green Energy Consumers Alliance, we've been around since 1982. We are a nonprofit, we are a consumer organization, and we are a pro-environment organization. We started as a heating oil buyers group, then we broadened into wind power, and more recently solar, electric vehicles, and heat pumps, trying to provide people with the information that they need to make their green energy choices as easily as possible and as affordably as possible. We've been working on solar for a while, trying to find solutions that work for our members. Again, something that's affordable as well as efficacious. Since 1999, working with Solar Boston with 30 homes, and then increasingly over the years, we've been purchasing solar RECs, and we support over 600 projects now. We had constructed a solar array on the Sam Adams Brewery. That's our home office in Jamaica Plain. Not the brewery itself, but the complex that includes the brewery. So we were pleased to be able to make that a solar production facility as well as a beer production facility. Then we got more active through the Mass Solar Connect program, where we helped foment nearly 400 installations in 2015. And we got to team up directly with EnergySage in 2017 on Mass Solar Connect 2. And we just really liked what we saw when we started working with them. With EnergySage, the registration is free and easy. You can tell them, I don't want any sales calls, and they will keep your contact information private. They are great communicators. When you get your quotes, you can get up to 7 quotes from their pre-screened installers. You get these quotes with side-by-side comparison and all the assumptions that are buried usually in solar quotes that can really trip you up if one installer kind of uses wonky assumptions and they don't spell it out to you. Then your comparisons get all confusing. So they're great communicators. We really value that really highly. And the independent advisors, the solar advisors, is just a wonderful resource to be able to talk to people, chat with them through the website, emails, etc. So I think it's a really great program. And so to our members, this is Linda from West Roxbury, and she got her solar panels through EnergySage. And as she notes in her testimony, I really like that EnergySage put all the bids in a common format so I could compare them side to side. And this is from Brian in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. He notes that even quotes that he had gotten outside of the EnergySage program, he was able to upload those to the EnergySage site, and the energy advisors were able to walk through those quotes with him, as well as the quotes that they had provided. And again, they're independent and giving you really knowledgeable feedback on what they're seeing from those quotes. And now I'll turn it over to Matt.
All right, thanks so much for the great introduction, Loie. So I'll quickly introduce myself again for anyone who kind of walked in during the first section. My name is Matt Schuler. I'm a member of the Energy Advisor team at EnergySage, and we are essentially the customer-facing side of the marketplace. We're here to provide any objective insight and information any of you might need during your journey of going solar with us. So our mission here at EnergySage is really, as it says here, to empower people to make smarter energy decisions through simplicity, transparency, and choice. So by providing an objective platform to be able to receive and compare bids, our aim is really to help our customers and our homeowners make the most educated decision possible while moving forward, not only to kind of understand the benefits, but also just to feel more confident in doing so. You can go to the next slide. So as I said, deeply committed to transparency and choice, which positions us as a trusted advisor to the consumer. By combining objective education with a comparison experience, we can help shoppers save up to 20% on their solar project that they would have going with a traditional solar shopping experience. While we are a for-profit company, our consumer-centric approaches have earned us support and some funding from the Department of Energy, NYSERDA, and the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, which is still our single largest shareholder. So a big way that a lot of people end up coming to our marketplace is through our pretty vast supply of educational materials, including thousands of articles, videos, and infographics, as you see here. We really have information on any variety of info that you might need in order to learn more about the process of going forward with solar, from the financing side, the equipment, batteries, panels, inverters. We have a buyer's guide here, which you can see in the bottom left, which allows you to sort of look at the actual stats and specifics for any individual equipment you might be considering, and compare them side by side to really get a good understanding of what you'd be getting with your installed system. So I won't spend too much time here. Obviously, you've already, I believe most of you at least have already registered with us. So when you join on with EnergySage, you create a platform, you create a profile, you give us your property information and your usage, and your installers submit a bid to you. And once you've gotten quotes, you can use our platform to do an apples to apples comparison with live support from advisors such as myself. And like I said, really just get as much information as possible to be able to understand the decision that you're making. The next slide here, I believe, is the first quote view that you'll encounter once you've received your bids. We call this the baseball card view. It's essentially the initial summary that you get when you start to compare your bids here. So it gives you a general idea of really what each individual installer is offering, the price per watt of their quote, the needs met percentage, so essentially the amount of your current usage that it would be covering, and a general idea of which quotes here, based on our metrics, have the best value, the most competitive cost, most popular equipment. If you look up at the top of the page here as well, there's a tab next to the My Quotes tab, which is currently open, that says Messages. I do always like to highlight this. The Messages tab is the easiest way for you to get directly in touch with your installers right off the bat. Most of them will likely have already sent you a message if you've received quotes, and I definitely recommend checking that out. You can just give them a quick hello, let them know more specifically what you're looking for, request any changes to your quotes, and use that to start the process of following up. I think a lot of people who use our platform specifically, at least initially, want to avoid using a lot of their personal contact info. They'd rather stay away from emails or phone calls, and the Messages tab is a great way to really get in touch with your installer initially. And so if you would like to see your quotes sort of more directly in comparison with each other, that orange tab in the top right of your screen there that says side-by-side view, that's what I would really recommend for starting to compare more in depth. And that's really what I would say is the true apples to apples view that we have. If you are on this view and you want to sort of reach out to your installer more directly off our marketplace, though, you'll see each quote here has a tab to send a message, schedule a call, or to see their phone number if you'd like to give them a call directly. So here is the top sort of summary section of what, again, we call our side-by-side view. And this is really where I'd say people do most of their direct comparison. You can see here at the top of the page is just the basic display of the installer names, a tab to actually select the quote once you're ready to move forward, a contact button, which you can use to sort of start that process of getting in touch with them directly. Then the actual summary view, which has a couple of the details we would say most people consider important to be able to see right off the bat. So there's a tab to take you to the ratings and reviews section for each installer. Again, a tab to see the needs met, price per watt, the investment, net investment cost, as well as the savings projection over time, just to give you a general idea of the value between quotes. So however you really would personally want to compare whatever values and metrics are most important to you, this is really the page where you can see them all side by side and figure out who is really closest to hitting the mark for you for really hitting all of your preferences. The next tab here, and you can navigate through all of these tabs. If you see up above the installer names at the top, there's tabs for summary, installer, equipment, costs and benefits. Those are interactable. So if you want to jump to any of those points on the page at any time, you can use those to just quickly get there without having to do a lot of scrolling. But here on the equipment tab, you can see specifically what brands you're being offered here. So your panel brand versus your inverter brand. The ranking that we have for either, our ranking system specifically was designed by NREL, the National Renewable Energies Laboratory, to give you kind of a general holistic idea of the differences in your equipment quality based on factors like efficiency, degradation rates, warranty coverage. And so you can see what individual brands as well as model numbers each installer is offering. And then down at the bottom of that page here, there's a section labeled system design, where you can really see what makes up the nuts and bolts of the system from a technical perspective. So the number of panels, the actual sort of panel wattage and capacity, the total system size in kilowatt capacity, as well as the yearly production estimate, which is the value that obviously goes into your electricity needs met. And again, these were all designed based specifically on the information that you uploaded initially. And so I would emphasize as well, these quotes are absolutely not set in stone. So if at any point you feel like the quotes your installers have offered you don't really fit your specifics or your expectations, there is room for them to be sort of molded to your needs if you want to request any changes, obviously, within the limits of your property. So if you feel like you actually want to expand your system a little more, go with a few more panels, higher coverage, all you got to do is just use the contact installer methods we have here to reach out to them directly and start up a conversation about what to expect and what is really possible. Your energy advisor that, again, like I said, you'll have access to at every point of the journey, is a great way for you to get that done as well. So if you want sort of a help to link that communication with your installer, your advisors such as myself are there to either send them a message or communicate with them directly to help get those bids updated according to your needs and your preferences. And finally, at the bottom of this page is the cost benefit detail. Here you can get a good idea of what the actual cost of the system would look like, either through an upfront purchase or through a loan. And there are certainly a lot of people who will go solar doing either. So if an upfront purchase is really not feasible for you, your installer will have access to at least one type, if not a variety of loan options for you to choose from, either directly through themselves or through financing partners that they work with. And here you can get a good idea of what the cost of the system would look like, or what you might be paying on a monthly basis through a loan option. Each section here has a tab labeled "See Details," which you can use to open up that section to see a lot more specific information. So if you wanted to look at the general information about the loan, we display the monthly payment here, any sort of down payment that would be necessary, the monthly savings. But if you hit up See Details, then you would be able to open it up and see what the interest rate is, what the term length is, and really get a good idea of that comparison there. But again, I'd emphasize from the loan perspective, this is just one example of a loan an installer might have to offer. If you like a quote that an installer is offering, but you want to get a good idea of whether or not they have other financing options available for you to choose from, I would definitely recommend getting in touch with them directly for a more in-depth discussion about what possibilities they might have. And you can always pursue your own financing as well if you would prefer to work maybe with a bank or credit union that you have a history with. Finally, down at the bottom of that page below the loan section is a tab that says View Full Quote. And if you go there, you'll open up a full page with all of the direct information just specifically for that quote there. So if you would rather look at that individually, that's a great place for you to see all of that more direct information. Most of the tabs on this page are interactable. So if you want to go to the installer's profile page, you can hit their name up at the top, and that'll take you to a page which gives you all of their ratings and reviews, some background information on the company, and just a great set of additional information to work with. And when you're finally ready to make that next decision and start to move forward with an installer, the select button will take you to a portal where you can log that change with us. And that selecting your installer on the marketplace helps us stay in the loop if you need any questions down the line. And it also lets the rest of the installers here know that you're going in another direction, so they won't send you any more messages. But once you're moving forward with an installer, you're good to go with them. They'll be able to walk you through the rest of the process. But we at EnergySage, even after you've moved forward, are there as a resource for you if you have anything else that we can help out with from sort of our status as the middleman between you and the installer. All right, and finally, as I said before, throughout your process, you will have access to an energy advisor who can help you through the learning and shopping process that you're going through. So our key role, like I said, is to be sort of an objective resource of insight and information if you have any questions or would like some help moving forward. We talk to people, as I said, from every phase of the process, from having just created an account to being a day before signing your contract with an installer. And as I said, if you have any questions or requests that you would like to make of the installer, but you don't necessarily want to reach out yourself right away, we are here to help you with that as well. So we can help you coordinate any quote changes, any logistics, and really get the ball rolling there. I would really emphasize to check out, see if you've gotten any contact from your advisor so far. I think we have an automatic email that goes out to everyone who registers. And so if you've already created an account, you've likely already gotten some information from one of us. And we're, like I said, always happy to answer any questions people have. So here are some common questions and hurdles that I'd say a lot of us encounter moving forward. I absolutely say there are no dumb questions moving forward with solar. A lot of it is pretty complicated and can be a very, very new process for a lot of people. So if you have something that's sort of holding you up, or you would really like to make sure it gets answered, definitely no shame in asking it. And I think a lot of installers would say the same. They're happy to answer any questions people have or any concerns someone might be covering before they want to make their final decision. But anyway, thank you everyone for listening. If you do have any questions that don't get answered at the end of this webinar, my contact info, I believe, was at the front. My email is matthew@energysage.com. Absolutely feel free to send me an email, and I'm happy to help out any way I can for your process moving forward.
Great, thanks, Matt. If you like this webinar, Green Energy Consumers Alliance hosts webinars frequently. We have one coming up on phasing out gasoline this week, and one on heating system efficiency the week March 9th. And you can always find our events on the website, greenenergyconsumers.org/events. And many of our webinars are recorded and posted to our YouTube channel. And we are a nonprofit, so we do welcome donations. You can give at greenenergyconsumers.org/give now. And donations allow us to do advocacy work and our electric vehicle program and our green municipal aggregation, which is bringing green electricity to entire municipalities, which is really a great step forward in greening the grid. And here is our contact information again. And Kate, if you would start letting us know what questions have come into the question box. And please, people who are here, please feel free to add your questions. And Matt, if you want to turn on your camera, then we can have people able to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And quick update there, my email is actually Matthew, MATTHEW @energysage.com. So if anyone has any questions they want to follow up with me on, make sure you're using the full name there.
Great, thanks for that correction.
So the first question I'm seeing here is, while the upfront costs are easy to determine, what are the long-term maintenance costs?
Yeah, great question. So as far as immediate maintenance issues that might come up, there really aren't a whole lot. One of the nice things about solar is that there are no consumables, there are no moving parts. Long-term maintenance costs that can come up, what some people will look into is getting their panels cleaned every few years. I would say it's not an absolute necessity. In most cases, as long as you don't live in a particularly dusty area, it's not going to be a huge problem. But some people will prefer to do it for peace of mind. For any sort of actual hiccups that could come up regarding equipment quality or actual maintenance or malfunction issues with the equipment, you do have a number of warranties that'll be covering you both through the installer and through the manufacturer. So for the manufacturer warranties, you'll have a panel output warranty as well as a panel material warranty covering any issues with greater degradation or actual material malfunctions. If any of that is not specifically covering what's actually going wrong with the system, it'll likely be covered under the installer labor and workmanship warranties, covering pretty much anything that has to do with the health and quality of life of the system for the work that they did. The small costs that can come up in that line is that if you do have a maintenance or a malfunction issue with your equipment that needs to be solved, the labor costs of replacement are not always going to be covered under the warranties. So if you needed to get a panel swapped out, maybe LG would cover the actual replacement of the panel, but not the labor costs associated with that. But if you have any specific questions on what that process looks like, I would definitely recommend directing them to your installer, as usually they are going to be the first line of defense, so to speak, for reviewing what your next steps are there if you do have any equipment issues you're looking to get sorted out.
Matt, I know that earlier in the solar technology, inverters regularly had to be replaced. What percentage of people have, I know now there are many inverters that don't need to be replaced. What percentage of people have inverters that end up needing to be replaced during the lifespan of the system?
Yeah, great question. I don't know the actual failure rate off the top of my head, but it has gotten considerably lower over time. The two core types of inverters you'll see now are microinverters versus string inverters. So typically, how people will differentiate between the two is that with a microinverter system, you might have a slightly higher chance of an inverter failing just because you have more equipment. When you have a 20 panel system with 20 microinverters, there's a little bit more to be considerate of as opposed to a single string inverter in your system. But most inserters from sort of higher level manufacturers at this point, such as Enphase or SolarEdge, are going to be offering around a 25-year warranty. So they're confirming their equipment quality for mostly the expected duration of the system, at least as it relates to the panels. But there's obviously not a complete guarantee that nothing will happen over time. But yeah, I honestly don't know the rate of failure off the top of my head.
Thanks. Okay, next question.
Yep. Next question is, how does EnergySage get compensated, and how does EnergySage decide what 7 installers to offer?
Yeah, both good questions. So we are paid in part by our installers. So each installer who works with us pays what you could kind of think of like a membership fee or a subscription fee to be a part of our platform and be able to provide quotes so that it can operate at no cost to the consumer. We do background check and vet all of the installers who we work with. So we make sure that all of their licenses and insurances are up to date, that they have a good lasting history of quality communication and installations prior to working with us. And we have a great team of installer representatives who consistently work with them moving forward to make sure that homeowner feedback is good, that they're adequately using the platform well, and making sure that our mission is right at the forefront of how they operate. And what was that second question?
How do you choose which 7 installers to send?
Yep. So you can receive, as you said before, a maximum of up to 7 quotes. Essentially, once your account is approved into our marketplace, it is sent out as a sort of bulk notification to a variety of installers who are available and looking for work in your area. And at that point, so long as there are enough available installers, it will be more than 7. And then it's essentially first come, first serve for the installers at that point. So the first 7 installers who elect to submit a bid will be the ones who are actually able to quote there. But it's available to pretty much any installer who is sort of actively listed as available and looking for work in your county of the state.
Next question is, does EnergySage warrant the install in any way or have any liability within the process?
We do not. So your final contract is entirely with the installer that you're working with, which includes all of these specific guarantees, all offered directly through your installer. We are there again for assistance on the communication side of things, helping you with any sort of hiccups that could come up down the line, really helping to bridge that gap. But the final contract and all of the warranties and guarantees with it are directly offered through the installer.
Next question. Also, is it better to go with a larger regional installer or a small local team?
Yeah, so I would say there are pros to both and some of the reasons why people might choose one over the other. With a larger installer, I'd say you maybe have a bit of a better guarantee for the history of service that they offer. So some of the larger installers have maybe been around for a little bit longer, have a wider base of work, and are maybe in a lot of people's minds a little bit more of a confident bet for moving forward as far as their longevity goes. But we have a lot of smaller installers as well who have been with us and have just in general been installing for a long time. With a smaller installer, you'll sometimes have someone who's a little bit more local to you. So I would say a lot of homeowners really appreciate having someone that's sort of in their backyard, so to speak, someone they could drive down the street to go to have a conversation about how their system's operating on any given day. Someone who might be a bit easier to work with from the communication side of things. And it's not to say that a larger installer can't offer that, but I would say it can be a bit of a different experience. So I would say sometimes people will have sort of the frame of reference that a larger installer might have a bit of a more competitive cost. That can be the case in some cases, but I would say a value of a marketplace like EnergySage specifically is that the costs tend to be a little bit more comparable, since installers are quoting with the idea that they are competing sort of against one another for your business. So I would definitely say there is value to both. They're based on personal preference. You might lean one way or another, but if you don't really have a preference one way or another right now, I can really say that a large or smaller installer can really get the job done.
Next question is, can you compare a PPA against a lease against a purchase?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk about PPAs and leases first. So with a PPA, you're sort of paying a fee more based around the actual amount of energy you're using rather than a sort of strictly set monthly fee, which is what you'll see with the lease. Both of them, I'd say, as opposed to a purchase option of a system, are more like renting an apartment versus mortgaging a home. So they are generally a good option for people who are strictly looking for the lowest monthly payment possible that they can get. So someone who is not necessarily looking for the long-term value of owning the system, but rather just to decrease their monthly costs as much as possible. The advantage to a purchase is generally going to be that you can actually take advantage of all the incentives that are offered with owning a system. So when you're purchasing the system, you can take advantage of the federal tax credit. You can get any production incentives that are going to be available. So in Massachusetts specifically, you would have access to the Mass Smart program, which is an actual sort of production incentive and cash payout based on your production in any given month. An advantage to purchasing as well is that it is an investment in the resale value of your home. So if you're looking for sort of a long-term investment, a lot of that can be recouped, or at least a portion of the system investment can be recouped through resale, usually about 3 to 4% of the home's resale value. A lease and a PPA, again, are generally going to be a bit of a more short-term option, or for people who are really looking to completely avoid any sort of maintenance hassle that they might encounter. A lot of times when you're looking at a lease or a PPA, the person who you are leasing or doing the PPA with is going to be covering any of those costs. But as I said before, there really are not a ton that you'll generally, at least very often, need to be concerned with. So really, they're sort of marketed for different subsets of consumers. If you are looking for something that's more associated with kind of a monthly payment, I would definitely at least recommend looking into going with a loan or financing option with a purchase option as opposed to a lease or a PPA, just for the cost comparison. I'd say for most people, the lease and PPA is attractive because it can be lower than their current electricity bill, which is something that you oftentimes can accomplish with a purchase option as well. But certainly both worth considering depending on your personal situation.
Next question is, what is the expected life of solar panels?
Yeah, so the warranty life for a lot of equipment at this point is going to be around 25 years. The panels will live longer than that. At that point, it really comes down to just how quickly they're degrading as opposed to when you can actually expect the equipment to just stop working. So panels will live longer, very likely, than the inverters. I would say you can expect a panel to last probably upwards of 30 years at this point, maybe 35 or 40. The inverter likely won't last that long. It's unclear at this point exactly how much past the certain warranty term we're seeing at this point, you might expect the system to last for. But again, if you're looking at some of the higher quality equipment on the market, you can at least expect it to be guaranteed by the manufacturer for 25 in most cases.
Do you encounter installers who will not work with you?
So it definitely can happen depending on the scope of the project. So different installers will have sort of a different scope of work that they tend to operate in. Maybe you have a specific roofing material that an installer is not able to work with, such as a metal roof. Maybe you are looking for a system that is not really within the sizing scope that most installers will tend to work with. If you're creating your account with us, and an installer has submitted a quote, ideally they have enough information to work with at that point based on either the satellite view of your home or your project preferences, that they have an understanding of whether or not it's something they'd work with. If it's strictly based off of a sort of regional concern, the installer is only able to quote if they've specifically stated that they work in your region. So I'd say it's not very often you'll find a single installer who specifically won't take on a project. But if it does come down to some more specific issue about the restriction of solar on your property as a whole, it's something that they'll be upfront with you about. If they either don't think that it's a good idea for you to move forward, or if they see some specific restriction that would prevent them from moving forward with the project. Or did you mean
Matt,
EnergySage as a whole?
Yep. So he just said I meant work with EnergySage as in an installer that's not part of the EnergySage network.
Yep. All right. So yeah, that bit of a different question there. There are some installers who have either elected to not work with us, or installers who we have personally not elected to work with. A lot of times that will come down to either the installer's history or some specific facet of our marketplace that does not necessarily appeal to the installer. One thing that we consider very important when moving forward with an installer is whether or not their pricing model matches ours. And I would say there are definitely some installers who maybe think that we're a little bit more competitive than they either can or are willing to really meet. So if an installer is not able to maintain sort of a competitive action on our marketplace, they might not be all that successful. Or they might just be more interested in a sort of more traditional lead acquisition format that is not really a good fit for what EnergySage does. You know, we are certainly a bit more stripped back, a little bit more lean as far as how an installer will access homeowners to work with through our marketplace. And sometimes for new installers, there is a bit of a learning curve there that they might not necessarily be used to. So there have been cases in the past on either side where it hasn't necessarily been able to continue at a good working rate for both. But I would say there are certainly a lot of installers who've been able to sort of get over that hump and succeed with us.
Next question is it better to buy or lease when considering the resale of a house?
Definitely better to buy in that case. So for one, I'd say because you actually owning the equipment, it does allow you to factor that into the resale cost of the home. If you're looking to sell a home that has a leased solar system on top, you'll likely need to either end the lease and have the equipment stripped, which can be a bit cost prohibitive, or have the lease transferred to the new owner, which from a logistical perspective can be a bit of a headache. So I'd say if you're looking for a system that is not that you are not going to outlive in the home, I would definitely recommend looking into a purchase option with a plan of sort of factoring the cost of that system into the home's resale.
If solar is combined with heat pumps for heating, cooling, and hot water heating, how is electrical demand provided when the sun is not shining?
Yeah, so at any point, if the sun is not shining while you still need to pull electricity, you will still maintain a grid connection, meaning you'll need to be pulling your energy directly from your utility. Now, assuming your system is sized properly, you'll be able to cover most of that through your net metering credits through your utility. So you can essentially think of it as functioning comparable to really any other appliance in your home. Now, if you are a home that tends to do a lot of your heating at night, it is likely that your sort of usage balance is going to shift more towards you being a little bit more utility reliant, in which case not everyone is going to be quite as comfortable with that. You know, some people want to go solar, not necessarily strictly for the cost savings, but to be more self-sufficient and directly using their energy. And that is something worth considering, is that there are a lot of periods where you'll be using power, but not necessarily directly covering it with your solar production. But through your utility net metering credits, essentially them buying back your energy and crediting your bill, you'll at least be able to financially cover most of that, assuming your system is sized properly. And if you are looking at adding a heat pump, but you don't currently have one and you want to factor that into your system design, I would definitely recommend having a conversation about it with your installer. giving them the expectation that you are looking to add something like a heat pump and they can help you size accordingly.
And Matt, could any of your installers help people with battery systems if somebody wanted to be less reliant on the utilities and have battery backup?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of them can at this point, and I would say as we move forward and the battery storage market continues to grow, many more installers are going to begin to adapt and start offering that as an additional service. But yeah, so if you are looking for a way to be a little bit less grid reliant, to be able to make more direct usage of your electricity that you produce rather than relying on the grid, definitely worth looking into battery backup, and essentially getting a battery to work as similar to a solar generator where you're storing your excess generation rather than sending it back into the grid, and it gives you a nice surplus of power that you can tap into during the night, during a cloudy day, or during a period when you're actually disconnected from the grid, like a power outage.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a few questions about batteries. What about batteries? Are the battery walls cost effective at this point?
So the cost is probably the biggest deterrent of a battery for most people looking into it. I'd say with solar specifically, going solar is something that you can and will see savings on in the short to medium term. With a battery, I really would not go into it expecting to see a return on investment, just to be upfront about that. The initial cost of a single battery could be for a full installation prior to any incentives, maybe around $10,000 to $12,000. It's something that you would want to look into if you're really valuing the home resiliency that it's providing. So if you wanted the battery backup, if you wanted the ability to store your excess power and be more self-sufficient, it can be a great option. Most batteries at this point, I'd say for as far as an expected lifespan goes, are maybe around a 10-year warranty. So you can plan for maybe getting one battery now, with the idea in mind that you can expand or swap to a bit of a more cost-efficient system in 5 to 10 years or so, when I'd say the technology will catch up a little bit and it might become a bit more cost-effective. But yeah, I would say it's cost prohibitive at this point is going to be the big reason why a lot of people will maybe consider it, but decide to at least not at this time at it with their base solar system.
And with
And
the development of the future development of two-way batteries for cars, you may not need that second battery system 10 years from now. You may just be able to use your car for that function.
Sure, yeah. There's certainly some logistics that'll need to get sorted out at that point, but it's certainly a very cool idea, and not something that's out of the realm of possibility by any means.
And the last question I'm seeing here is, if you purchase a system or lease one long term, can the system become technologically obsolete before its financial or physical life?
Yeah, so another good question. So I guess the gist of that is, if I buy a system now but the technology changes, is it going to become unusable or become no longer cost effective for me to continue to use it? I would say no. So long as your system is sort of adequately working day one, barring any sort of specific issues with your equipment manufacturer no longer being in business, assuming you need maintenance, your panels will still function. So even if maybe, let's say, solar tiles become the primary way for people to go with a solar installation 10 or 15 years from now, and you have a traditional panel installation, your grid is not going to sort of at some point stop taking some specific type of production. It's all going to be functionally the same for how your home actually treats it. And maybe panels will continue to get considerably more efficient over time. But as long as the system that you're sizing for today is adequately covering your needs and is not degrading faster than expected by the manufacturer, which is not something I would expect, I would say equipment changing over time is not really going to be an issue for existing systems.
What about solar tiles, Matt? Are you seeing any progress on those becoming more efficient?
Yeah, it's so I can't really speak to the efficiency. I would say that's really a bigger question mark for a lot of people as far as the logistics of solar tiles go. Is that really the main manufacturer we see at that point for those is Tesla, and the information regarding sort of the long-term health and production of them is not quite as well fleshed out as it is for a solar panel. As far as how well it'll age compared to most traditional solar PV. It is a solid option for people who are looking to get a re-roofing done along with their system. I'd say that is really the core customer base for a solar shingle, is someone who wants to avoid the cost of going with a roof replacement as well as a solar installation and just get them both done together. I do think we'll probably learn a lot more about systems like that over the next 5 to 10 years or so, when maybe some more manufacturers and installers start to come into play. But it's still relatively new technology as far as the market is concerned.
As someone who wants to be really cutting edge and has the money to risk in the prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting though. It's obviously a very cool prospect, especially for people who maybe the biggest detractor for them for going solar is the actual, aesthetics of the setup. Someone who doesn't like the look of a panel on their home, they can just go with a bit of a sleeker, more tiled look, which is, for some people is the main reason why they're looking into it. I personally think that the logistics of maintenance on those would be a bit of a bigger headache than maybe a 20 panel system, but so long as the installer is guaranteeing it, so long as the manufacturer is guaranteeing it, it's not necessarily directly in your hands, so to speak.
And there are a few more questions that came in, just two, if you guys have time to answer them.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you purchase a system, who maintains it?
Yeah, so if you purchase a system, it as I said before, it's covered specifically under the purchase warranties associated with the system. So as far as strict maintenance goes, if it is something actually related to an equipment malfunction or degradation of the equipment, or maybe something like damage to the property or equipment during installation, it'll be covered under either your equipment warranties or your manufacturer warranty. There really isn't a whole lot of regular upkeep that a system will need if it's not a specific issue with the equipment. Now, a lot of times an installer will offer an additional maintenance package, maybe something where they agree to come out once or twice a year to actually sort of check in on the stability of the system, or offer monitoring services if you would rather not track your production yourself. But it's not a required additional purchase with most contracts. It's something that you can look into, if nothing else, for peace of mind. But otherwise, I suppose for any direct logistics regarding the maintenance, you would be the primary person taking care of it, but your installer and your manufacturer are still there to actually cover anything that's listed under the warranties.
And last question, do you expect the SMART program to continue for a much longer period and even start increasing in rate, and ever start increasing in rate?
So that is another good question. I honestly would not expect the rate to increase anytime soon. For most state level production incentives, it really is set to decrease based on the amount of volume of solar that's installed. So as Massachusetts continues to grow its solar portfolio, I do think those rates will continue to decrease. Now, it's possible another program could come along to either supplement it at the utility level or transition it to a different program. So in New Jersey, for instance, the SREC program was replaced with a more consistent transitional renewable energy credit program. Maybe that's something that could come along to replace the SMART program down the line. As far as how long it'll continue, I do think some variant of it will be around for quite a long time moving forward. But I do think that the value and the rates are going to continue to decrease as we've seen so far.
Unfortunately, the decrease in the incentive has been matched by a decrease in the cost of the panels.
Yeah, exactly. So even if the incentive rates are decreasing, it is consistently becoming more cost efficient to move forward every year. And utility rates are certainly not going to be dropping anytime soon as well. That's something that, an indirect incentive is just how much you end up having to pay your utility each month. And unfortunately, the trend for that has not been looking so good either. But certainly good for solar.
Well, thanks so much, Matt, and thanks to everybody for tuning in and for sharing your questions. You can follow up with us, Matthew at EnergySage.com, and that's 2 T's and an H, right?
Yep, MATTHEW at EnergySage.com. Happy to answer any other questions anyone has or help connect you with your personal energy advisor at EnergySage to help out as well.
Great, and I'm Loie at greenenergy.org, greenenergyconsumers.org, if anybody has questions that I can help with. So thanks very much, and stay safe, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye all.